3 hours a week. That's the absolute maximum amount of time under 18s can spend on video games in China, after the country introduced a drastic new limit to combat gaming addiction.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our exploration of the Chinese game industry. Today, we'll dive into the rules and how they shape the gaming environment in China. Our story begins in the past, when game creators and the Chinese government decided to help minor players find balance. They introduced the anti-addiction system, a way to make sure gaming stays enjoyable without taking over life.
Now we would like to discuss the regulation and evolution of measures aimed at preventing minors from becoming addicted to online games in China. In 2005, the National Press and Publication Administration had initiated the development of standards for an anti-addiction system for online games. By August 2005, 7 major enterprises in the online game industry had signed a letter of responsibility, committing to developing and using the anti-addiction systems. Moving forward to March 2006, a proposed plan for real name authentication in the anti-addiction systems were introduced. This plan required service providers to collect user ID numbers, real names, and phone numbers, submitting this information to the police for verification. In April 2007, a joint notice from the National Press and Public Administration and other departments had emphasized the importance of protecting the physical and mental health of minors through the anti-addiction systems. The system was implemented on July 16, 2007. In 2010, the Ministry of Culture and Tourism reinforced regulations enforcing the anti-addiction systems for both domestic and foreign online games. The measures of online games were reinforced in 2010, which outlined legal responsibilities for online game operators. Violations, including the issuance of virtual currency without approval, could be resulted in fines and even suspension of business. Fast forward to 2019, the National Press and Publication Administration had taken over, canceling the previous measures. On October 2019, they had published the notice of imposing administration measures to prevent minors from becoming addicted to online games. Further, on August 30, 2021, stricter measures were reintroduced. To conclude this portion of the presentation, China's regulation and landscape for online games has evolved significantly. The journey from the initiation of anti-addiction systems to the strengthening of legal responsibility reflects the government's commitment to protect the well-being of minors in the digital realm.
Next up, let's talk about how long you can play. It's like a guidebook, making sure minor players don't get lost in the game for too long, reminding them that there's a world beyond the screen.
Playing time regulations were first introduced by the Chinese government on 2019. The regulations limited the playing time for 1.5 hours per day, so on the weekdays, and 3 hours per day on the weekend for children. To control these regulations, gaming providers were necessary. So when you log in, that your real name, so kind of like your identity, is known, and so they can watch the monitor, the system, and how long you play. In 2020, even more stricter gaming times were introduced. Minors were only allowed to play 1 hour on Friday, weekends, and public holidays. And besides that, the gaming companies were required to enforce this regulation. From 2021 until 2022, further regulations were made. The most notable change was a weekly gaming time. So you just could play 3 hours in a total week. And they had special periods where you could play, mostly from 8 p.m. until 9 p.m. Of course, the real name registration and the monitoring was controlled even more and was getting better and better. Now I want to talk about why all this happened. The government got a lot of pressure from parents because they complained that their children changed in the character while playing these games. Parents claimed that there must be stricter rules to protect the children. And of course, they wanted a better system because their children always found a way how to sneak past the play regulations. This was seen really as a problem for the mental health for children because they got really addicted to these gaming stuff.
Moving on, we will explore age ratings, a system that sorts games not just by tech stuff, but by what's suitable for different age groups. It's like a test says, this game fits you.
Addiction is also one of the concerns regarding game addiction. Some parents may find their children too young and will easily become addicted to unwanted contents such as pornography and violence. Restriction is also one of the concerns regarding game addiction. Some parents may find their children too young and will easily become addicted to unwanted contents such as pornography and violence. Age rating will help parents differentiate the content that is appropriate to their children's age, so children will not get exposed to the addictable content too early. After the release of the older version of notice regarding anti-game addiction, there have been several attempts by both government-affiliated groups and game companies such as Tencent and NetEase to draft the standard age rating because Chinese government refuses to use Western standards. But all drafts were rejected by Chinese government. We believe that the reason why Chinese government doesn't want to set standards is because they want to hold the decision power. They don't want to give that power to the private sector. And another reason is because all of the games that are imported into China need to be reviewed by the National Press and Publication Administration for censorship anyway. So there's no point to let the private sector decide the age rating. These are the examples of age-appropriate advisory for online game published by China Audio Video and Digital Publishing Association. Next topic is censorship or content restriction. There is no standard regarding censorship specifically for online games. The censorship decision is totally up to the National Press and Publication Administration's discretion. However, since an online game is also a type of publication under Chinese law, we can rely on the general requirement for all type of publication standards. Under the Regulation on the Administration of Publication, Article 25 as a basis. Another way is to check with the standards suggested by the companies that specialize in distributing foreign apps into China's market. This is an example from Apple in China company. The game should have no corpse, skeletons, zombies, vampires, pools of blood, or blood of any kind in any color. When a character dies, they must show no blood, and since we can have corpse, companies decide to make them vanish into thin air as shown on this video.
As our story unfolds, we will look at what happens when rules are broken. What kind of trouble you can get into? And what does China officially say about it? It's a dialogue between the rules and pushing creative boundaries.
The punishment that will be enforced on the company that do not follow this act will be fine, revocation of license, or both. One of the example cases is on September 15, 2021, where an unnamed company was fined 100,000 yuan for allowing player to play more than government time limit, and the head of the company itself was also fined 10,000 yuan. Here is a comment from Chinese official. The rule dubbed the world's strictest limit on video game aims to curb gaming addiction among children and protect the physical and mental health of minors, stated the NPPA official on press conference August 30, 2021.
Permanent internet access arrived in China in 1994, and it soon became pretty clear to the government the impact it could have, mostly people disagreeing with them. In 1997, the first laws were put in place criminalizing use of the internet to harm national security. And by the end of the decade, the father of the Great Firewall, a computer scientist by the name of Fang Bingsing, was doing work that allowed the government to block IP addresses and domain names.
I want to talk about using the VPN to avoid these gaming regulations. It is very well known that a lot of children try to avoid the regulations by using a VPN. A VPN is a virtual private network, and you can access websites which are not allowed in China. So you can extend your playing hours and also play games which are not allowed in China. But the Chinese government monitors all these activities with the Great Firewall. And it's getting harder and harder to use VPN to avoid this law and the regulations. The usage of these VPNs can be seen as forbidden by the law. It is not mentioned somewhere exactly, but with using this VPN, you are avoiding government restrictions. And this is definitely an illegal activity. And of course, this could lead to really big consequences like fines, penalty, or internet access restriction. Some people have been jailed for selling these VPNs. For example, in 2017, a man was sent to prison because of that for 5.5 years, and he had to pay 500,000 yens for this.
So in 2018, the World Health Organization labeled the video games addiction as a disorder, this leading many countries to impose the restriction. In 2019, China has been imposed the limitation of playing the video games under 18 years old to 1.5 hours daily. And in 2021, the further restriction of gaming has been imposed to just only 1 hour daily between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m., plus 1 hour on the weekend and holidays. Despite aiming for progressing the children and better health, the survey has been shown the inconclusive evidence on the improved youth well-being. And some individuals has exploited the loophole, playing games over time by using the VPNs and regions account, raising the concern about the illegal gaming. Precise players identification poses a challenge globally, as you can see in South Korean gaming industry. The result of the regulation has been imposed in July 2022. The Nicopadas, an online resource for market intelligence in China and Southeast Asian video games industry, has been reported that over 52% has been employed with the Chinese regulation, but 46% found a way to play more. And the regulation has been impact 70% of the Chinese young reduce the gaming hours. So I recommend thinking that the regulation is too harsh compared to the inconclusive solution, and the loss is occurred to the Chinese gaming industry is more severe. Furthermore, the enforcement is concerned to the interruption on human rights law under Article 24 and 19 in the right to leisure and the child expression. The current Chinese regulation is facing the loophole on VPNs, and the identification of the child and the effectiveness of the improved child well-being is still unclear. In fact, the enforcement is leading to the possibility to having the black market, since many people are playing the games at the leisure. Well, so we believe that if the restriction is used as the official guideline and give the freedom decision to the public use, could be more effective. Importantly, make a clear terms of the addiction, since in many cases the overplay time like 2 or 3 hours per daily doesn't indicate any games addiction.